Hi, loves. Welcome back to Sparkle on Substack. I've just flipped the camera around so my calendars are the right way around for you all. Isn't that nice? I just toggled a little setting in Zoom. This is a solo episode today. I had the opportunity to record one more episode and I've been thinking about it for a while. So my podcast editor batches them. And I was like, there's loads that I want to talk about, but almost too much. So I've just sat with the things that have been coming up and I'm just going to take you on a little journey through all of my thinking and all of the things that I've been thinking about when it comes to our showing up, staying creative on Substack, and sparkling our way through life. So let's get into it. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the shifts and changes that we have experienced within Substack. So how Substack looks and feels, how we feel, and all of that jazz. So this has been incremental over time. So you get the new people that are coming to Substack and they're like, this is the best place ever. This is like the old days of blogging. And I love that for them. Like, I love that they can still see the clarity of what's possible on a long form writing platform, on a long form podcasting platform. I think for lots of other people, there have been so many shifts and changes that have happened. It's been like a bit of an assault on the nervous system. So the recent news feed that's come in is incredibly triggering for me. Like, I've written about it publicly, like I don't want to see it. So it will just change the way that I interact with the Substack desktop and the way that I use my process with that. So I think I'm less likely to scroll. I'm more likely to be intentional. I'll stick some notes out there and then I'll be done for the day. I don't want to see what is trending in the news. It's not conducive to my creative practice. There are some ways to shrink the browser and hide it, or the lovely Beth Kempton suggested opening up a Word document and having a Word document so it blocks it and you can still scroll. But I think ultimately it's that reminder that it is social media. It's a lovely social media, but Substack Notes is social media. So we need to be intentional about what we're doing there. So whether we have something to say, something to share, or whether we want to engage with other people, we can consciously come and choose that. Whereas I think before it was just all very lovely and we had a really nice time. Similarly, when I see complaints about the Substack educators or the growth experts, but I also see those posts doing really well. So other people jump on the bandwagon and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you can mute all of that stuff, and I've muted all of that stuff, and I just see the people that I feel really creatively inspired by. And I think that's a beautiful way to use Substack. Once we quiet the noise of what Notes is and can be, I feel like it's really beautiful just to come back to our own publication, to spend some time with our About page, to revisit the evolution of ourself, because we're always evolving if we're writing, especially if we're writing parts of ourselves onto the page, if we're hosting paid subscribers, and getting to know where we meet our audience. There's always so much that we can do with that. So I found that a really beautiful process to come back to About pages. I usually do it a couple of times a year, update my About page and my hero post and really step into the next evolution of myself. I've noticed that the more that we do the work, the more that we show up, the greater our confidence is. So the practice of showing up and experiencing all the things that we do experience online gives us more confidence. And I think that we can't fake that confidence. Like, we've just got to embody it and live it a bit. So Substack is still a really beautiful place for all of that. And I certainly find that I have the most joyful time with my members over at Sparkle on Substack. We just did hot seat calls this morning. This was like the fourth week of hot seat calls. And the reason that I put these hot seat calls on, it's extra as part of the membership, I wanted to do 6 weeks of them, was because I just really wanted to sit with people. Like, I just really wanted to know what was up, what's happening, what's going on, like, what do you need? What questions have you got? What are you struggling with? After the summer, lots of us feel like we've lost momentum or we're not quite sure where to start, and that's really normal. So I wanted to just have everybody in the Zoom room and support people in that way. So I felt this morning like my heart just lift, because the energy of people is just so lovely and everybody is so supportive and so creative. So it's really beautiful. I have a really beautiful time with everybody. And I can't believe, I've been doing this work for 3 years on Substack, over 3 years, and for over two at Sparkle on Substack now, coming up 2.5 years. So there's been a lot of lessons in that time. There's been a lot of lessons about my publishing cadence and how I want to work within long form content, how I want to show up for my audience. I've had really busy periods in all of that, and I've had quieter periods. I've had periods of astronomical growth, and I've had periods of slow growth. I've had periods of my dashboard going backwards and periods of my dashboard going into the green. It's just been everything in one platform. And I feel like it's really taught me about holding my nervous system in all of that. So if I make my worth about what's going on connected to my dashboard or connected to anything else really metrically online, then it's going to stall what I want to put out creatively. So I've learned now that I just need to care less about what's going on with the metrics. Of course, I have to be strategic, and of course, I need to look at that stuff and make sure that I am finding the balance in it all. But I think overall, leaning into the intuitive creative practice and putting out what feels really good, sitting with it, giving it time to percolate, then doing a light edit, then coming back to it is still how I want to work and how I have been working in this season. I still do go into the kind of ferocious energy of an idea sometimes. It's less now though. So when I first came to Substack and there was so much to say and there was so much to keep up on in terms of the education, in terms of the permission slips, in terms of like how people could navigate, I found that I was just like constantly showing up and constantly putting stuff out in that perfectly imperfect way before I was ready. You know, it just had to get put out. So that's what I was doing, and that was fine. Whereas now I'm like, okay, like who do I want to guest with? Who do I want to be with? Who do I want to connect with on lives? Whose audience do I want to be in front of? How do I want to nurture my audience of beginners, of creative expressionists, of business owners? Like, how do I want to show up to all of those different avatars of audiences? And it's, you know, it's different. It depends, you know, what people are asking for and what I feel compelled to do. So the newer breakthrough in my creative practice is this piece that has come from my old career, actually, which has been about audience development. So I was always very clear around my own audience development and who I was for. And then obviously, as other people have found themselves being invited in, it's shifted and changed. So it's meant that I have been able to really get to know my audience and make more that they will resonate with and more that will help them. And I think it's a real key. People really struggle to know and want to kind of hand over their power to what should I write? How often should I post? What days should I post? But actually, you know, your audience are there and you're doing it for them, so you can ask them about it all. If you didn't catch my free class, Audience Alchemy, you are so welcome to go and catch that free class. So it is over on my website. I'll link it below, and it's really that walk through how we kindle our voice, our authentic voice online, feel safe within that, create the content buckets that we want to show up within and get really comfortable with those, and then how we take care of ourselves in the online space so that our long form content can work hard for us behind the scenes longer term. So I'm talking like 2-3 years down the line, pieces of writing, podcasts, videos, all of that stuff that works for me behind the scenes and brings new audience members into my space. So that's what the class is all about. I'd love you to check that out. Commercial break there. The other thing that I wanted to lean into is this kind of like really strong opinion-based stuff about what Substack should be. Like, let's not make it this, let's not let this happen, let's not do this. And it's really interesting. Like, I've definitely seen it. And I was talking to my husband about making this podcast for you all, and he said, that's the thing that annoys me the most. Like, let's not have video here, let's not do this, let's not do that. And even though at the beginning I told you my complaint about the news feed, the reason that we have trending news is because it's popular, because people's nervous systems feed off news broadcasts and bulletins. Like, not me, but people do. So my thing with Substack, and they are very amenable and they do lean into the things that we want and need, is that I would just like to have the ability to choose and curate. And in most of Substack, we do have the ability to choose and curate. There was a time where bestsellers would have a feature before everybody else, so we could test it and we could chat to each other in the bestsellers chat. And because it's Substack's become bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's a good thing, we've got more readers and stuff now, which is wonderful. It means that we are a little bit more siloed. So what I did for my diamond members was set up a Telegram chat space for them. So Substack writers who are also business owners have a chat space, and Substackers that are also bestsellers have a chat space. So if you're inside my diamond membership, it's piloting with my diamond membership, and then it'll be rolled out to all my members. So look out for that. And it's so that we can actually converse and talk to each other about what's working, and kind of get through any blocks. If there's anything that people have tried that's worked really well, they're sharing it in there. So that's really beautiful to do. But it feels like we are less connected to Substack. The founders are busy, they're busy trying to make the company survive. Like, you can do your own reading on this, but Substack is not yet profitable. So even though they've just had $100 million worth of investment, the company, according to reports, is not profitable. So we can complain all we like, but what they're trying to do is make a sustainable ecosystem for all of us to be paid, a new engine for culture, a new way for us to hold our audience, and sit with our audiences, and ultimately find a model to monetize it if that's what we want to do. That said, you can come to Substack and not monetize at all. There's every option under the sun. So I feel quite literally done everything on Substack that I could have possibly thought of, within the creative framework that I have. So I do live video, I do Substack video. I had the beta testing of Substack video. So I remember being super nervous and putting out my vision board classes via Substack video. I've done all of that. I've tethered it to YouTube. I've tethered it to LinkedIn. I've tried pop-up summits. I've scheduled posts with guests. I've done Zoom calls with other Substack writers. I've written myself. I've hosted a paid newsletter, and I still do, over at Creatively Conscious. And then I host a membership on Sparkle on Substack. And those two streams of my business, and my business is bigger than Substack, feel really secure. Even though my growth has slowed on Sparkle, even though my gross annualized revenue has gone backwards, and I was sad for a time, I definitely was. But then I was like, do you know what? If I go back to my core values are all about depth of connection. And ultimately, in the first year, I didn't know how long people would want to stay. In my mind, I'd thought about 8 months would be enough for them to feel like they had enough to take forward and just kind of live their Substack dreams without Sparkle and Substack. And actually, as it is, I've had some of the people that started with me that have stayed the entire time because they love the community and because I'm plugged into it every day. So they can just ask me, if they're stuck with something and they want to come to a call, they can ask me. I bring in guests, we do masterclasses. We really take it holistic, so we really look at creativity. We've done stuff on human design. We've done stuff on printing your Substack articles into a digital magazine. And then actually like physically printing them as well. So there's just so much that you can do within Substack as a platform. And I really feel like just before summer, I got to a place where I don't really know what else more I can do. And it was like a feeling of exasperation because the day that I was due to pick my son up from finishing primary school, I got the news that the algorithm had like changed possibly forever, and the growth had been essentially cut off. So the growth we were seeing from recommendations had essentially been cut off. And I just couldn't really understand it. I was like, but why? Because if we grow through recommendations and if we're good at monetizing, and we've been monetizing for years, we can monetize the new people and then Substack get their 10%. So why on earth would everything shift and would we go backwards? And then the more people I spoke to and the more I found out how despondent people were, the more flat I felt, and the more I realized I just really needed a break from it all, and I needed to come back with freshness in September, which is what I've done. It's the last day of September when I'm recording this. And hopefully, you guys will be listening whenever you are in the future, but it'll be relevant to you. And I think, there's something about a break from the endless content machine, the endless celebrations of accolades. Like, that is a personal bugbear of mine, like, where I don't really see it on any other platform. Like, I'm all for us hyping ourselves, but I feel like people do it too much on Substack. I'm like, Yeah, I get it. Like you've done some really good things in your career, but it's like it's not LinkedIn. Like that's what we've got LinkedIn for. But I'm complaining there. Like I definitely am. It's a bugbear of mine. And maybe on a deeper level, I need to celebrate more of my wins. Who knows? But I do feel like if you are not in a great headspace about showing up on the internet, whichever platform it is, then you will see things that just trigger that wound more deeply. And I definitely feel like that was me before summer. I'd just launched Sparkle Bot, which is a custom GPT to help people create on their Substacks, and I'd programmed it with all of my ecosystem, and I'd launched a brand new framework. I'd had some pop-up guest posts around growth, and I felt like I was giving people everything that they potentially needed, but feeling quite lost in it myself. So I had to come back to center a bit, really. I had to lean into deep rest. So I worked with my mentor for 8 weeks, and I had the kids, right? So it's like not 100% restful. My daughter's really high energy. My son's very chill, but my daughter's very high energy. So the bits that I could do around deep rest and slowing down and taking my time over summer, taking my time away from Substack, taking my time away from being a business owner and away from being a mum that juggles a business and all of that good stuff, just meant that I was in such more of a conscious place to come back after the break, and it almost felt like the dip in growth didn't matter as much. Like it just felt very different. That deep rest, the playfulness around my own creativity, the going back to analog and just like journaling, and I got my big pieces of paper and like wrote things out and worked things through. Enjoyed being in my containers. I was in a good couple of containers and it was beautiful. Coaching containers, I mean. And it was just all gorgeous. So I do feel like what I wanted to say in the whole holistic of being on Substack over 3 years, there are going to be times where things feel like they're really exciting and on the up and there are all the opportunities, but there are going to be times where you just feel a bit burnt out. And I don't know that it is burnout. I think it's just exasperation with the noise of the internet, actually. And then when you turn away from that and you come back to center, you feel like you are more ready to meet whatever it is that you've created from where you're at. So that could be that when you're ready and you've had that time of pause, like I did. So I churned over 50 members over the summer. And I was like, they're all leaving. They're all leaving. And it's fine because I've said I'm taking August off. I've said the archive's here. There's a course here. I even gifted everybody my masterclass, which has been super popular with Russell Nohelty, that has seen people achieve bestseller status within like a matter of days or weeks. They had everything and they were still turning away, and there was a whole multitude of different reasons for that, and I just wrote about it. And I think feeling all of that, I turned the notifications back on so that I was receiving the energy of people leaving, because I wanted to try and regulate my nervous system in it. It's very, very normal for paid subscribers to leave. It's very, very normal for subscribers to unsubscribe. I definitely got my head around the unsubscribes, but the paid subscriber churn was hard. So the reason it's hard is because I've tried to build a business ecosystem that works for me when I'm doing other things. And the people churning is a reminder that I still have to do things to show up to bring new people in. And that, coupled with Substack's algorithm change, meant that I wasn't growing. I'd gone from growing between 500 and 900 free subscribers every month to a big fat zero, like literally zero. So what was really interesting in all of that, after my nervous system had processed it, after I came out the other side, was I just didn't really mind anymore. And I was like, do you know what? Everything for me is about depth of connection. Subscribers are going to churn. That's what they're going to do. It's not personal. Sometimes people move on, go on to different platforms. Sometimes people have had enough inspiration, education, reading your work, whatever it is. It's really not personal. It's very, very rarely personal. It's like a 0.01% personal. What it is telling of the time that we're in, where people are like, I just need to cut something. Like I need to cut some of the noise or some of the money or step away, because we're being called as a human race to come back to center, to come back to calibration, to enable ourselves to feel safe. Growth content, even if it's joyful growth content, triggers within people, I'm not doing enough. And that coupled with the fact that lots of my members, lots of my colleagues that I speak to have been seeing their growth go backwards since around April, May time. It was just that thing of like, this is just a disconnect. It's oil and water. So what's been really beautiful for me, I mentioned the hot seat calls that I've been doing, is just to really connect with people where they're at, to really remind people that we have this beautiful invitation to stay creative on Substack. We have this invitation to use video, to use audio if we want, or to write long form posts. We can do a paid newsletter, we can do a membership, we can make money through founding memberships if that's what we want to do. We can run a patron model. There are so many different ways with it. What is doing really well on Substack in the niche that I'm in, so the creative niche, when we talk about well-being and wholehearted business, and business that isn't hustle and isn't grind, is when something is universal. So when something is universal on Substack, it spreads like wildfire. It'll spread like wildfire on Notes. It'll be a clear invite to people to subscribe, and it does really well. Anything more nuanced, people haven't got the same attention spans they once had. So you have to work harder to bring those people in, to help those people filter that it's for them. There's loads of ways to do that, but that is where we're at. So we went from having a bio and then a publication explainer, which was two short spaces to tell people this is what it's about, this is what I'm about, and this is what the publication is about. That all got condensed into one bio. And this, coupled with loads of other changes that Substack have made, have just made it harder for people that aren't marketeers, that aren't and don't want to be grabby in the way that they explain things. It's just a little bit harder to grow on the platform. It's not impossible. Growth still happens. Depth of connection still happens. Beautiful testimonials flood in. Like, there's all gorgeous things that happen. It just isn't as ferocious as it was before. Personally, I mean, I don't run the company, but personally, I think it's problematic. But Substack are probably focusing on mass market appeal, and mass market appeal does something very different to like your cozy secondhand bookshop. Like, it just does. So the analogy, my cozy secondhand bookshop is the second biggest in Europe. It's wonderful. People travel from all over to get there. You can bring books in, you get credit added to your account, you can swap that credit for other books. You used to be able to top up your coffee cup for 20p, like before the pandemic this was, so I'm going back 5 years. So 20p for a coffee, £1 for a biscuit, and people came, you could bring your dog. People came from far and wide to come and do that. That analogy of, it's called barter books. So that analogy of barter books is what Substack was, and then now what Substack has morphed into being, and we can curate our spaces still within that, but is a little bit more like News Corp. So, I don't like to be too harsh on Substack because I do love them. I think the founders are amazing. They're very inspiring people. I heard Hamish speak at the garden party and it was wonderful, but they have to have mass appeal. They have to, because they have to bring more people into the platform. So that might just be a bit of a clash, So if we were expecting cozy secondhand bookshop vibes, Sunday afternoon feeling, and then all of a sudden we were plummeted into the stock exchange in London opposite the News Corp building. I don't even know whether that's true. I've never been to these places, but it's just what I imagine. That high alert, like loads going on, loads pulling for your attention, make decisions faster, all of that sort of stuff. Of course, there's going to be a clash. So if you're feeling any of that stuff, you're not alone. You are not alone. And it is still so possible to grow a really wholehearted audience on Substack. It's still possible for you to do the work that you want to do. People are still coming here to write. People are negotiating incredible book deals off the back of Substack audiences. People are funneling Instagram audiences into Substack, LinkedIn audiences into Substack. People are running ads to get into their paid newsletter. There's loads of different things that people are doing. And I think, I just wanted to say that, if I'd have sat down to record this podcast before summer, or even when I first came back, I don't think I would have been able to, because I was still processing all of this. Sounds really deep, isn't it? But I think it has been for me, because it's been so inspirational and instrumental in what I've been able to do with my business. So I think I was still processing it all. And where I am here and now, everything feels joyful again. Everything feels aligned again. Yes, there are annoyances, but I still feel that I am able to do my work, the work that means the most to me, the work towards my legacy, the work towards that impacts and compounds into bigger things that I've got longer term visions about here on Substack. It's not the only place that I'm creative on, but I definitely use it as a springboard or a flywheel, if you like that word, the longer form place for my ideas to sit where I can discuss nuance and I can connect with my audience. And really, because I'm all about connection, that's a beautiful thing. I feel like there's so many quirky, funny things happen now. Like it's just grace always. Like I said that to my colleague today. I was like, grace always. So I'd written a note about the newsfeed thingy, and then another Substack educator just like infiltrated my note and was just like promoting our stuff like multiple times in my note. And I saw it and I was just like, okay, okay. Like for me, it's like door to door sales. Like I'll be at home making a cup of tea, the door will go, and it's the double glazing man, and he wants to sell me double glazing for my home. And I have to say no to that because I'm fine with my windows as they are, and I already have double glazing. It's fine. However, eventually he will find a home where people are like, oh, thanks so much. I'm so glad you came round. It's something that I've been really overwhelmed by, and I really want that support and I really want that help. And thanks for bringing your tape measure and measuring all the things and doing all the paperwork. And you've got a discount for me today. That's brilliant. And it just is a different marketing approach. Like we just see different marketing approaches now. Whereas we were led by, connection before. So it's not wrong, and it's not bad, but it can just be a bit jarring. And I think sometimes now I have to be a bit like, oh, I'm a bit taken aback. That was a bit jarring, but then grace always, and we move on. So yeah, I hope that has been helpful for you all. I feel like I've gone down lots of different rabbit holes to give you the holistic, bigger picture. The main points that I wanted to pull out was if you're feeling like things have shifted, they have. If you're feeling like churn's higher, it could be for you, and that's fine. And it has been for me, and that's been fine. And I still have a successful business model and I still love what I do. And a lot of my colleagues feel the same. When you are building on Substack and building the longer term subscription connection with your audience, you are building for the long term, and that can feel scary. So walking it on your terms, one of the big things I say to people that are starting out is don't be in a rush to turn on page. You've got time. There's no panic. You'll deal with churn anyway. So you start to work out how long on average people stay. So you can start now, or you can start in 3 months' time. You can have a little bit more practice without the pressure. You can have a little bit more practice without feeling that you also need to create for a paid subscriber list or behind a paywall. So it's really up to you. If you want to go deeper on this, I do have a class. It's a deep dive into paid newsletters on Substack. So it's paid newsletters without the bells and whistles. It's available outside of the membership. There is 50% off for members. But it's a class that I wanted to create just to deep dive and remind you that paid newsletters do work and they are possible. I have one over on Creatively Conscious, and all that's there is a paid newsletter. That's what it is. And it's been there over 3 years. Yeah, 3.5 years. I'm very, very proud of the work that I've done there, and it works. There's 120 people paying for it, I think, right now, which is beautiful. That's a beautiful thing as a creator to have. So you can have that. You don't have to wrangle with prices and extras and videos and Zooms and courses behind the paywall. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can simply write a paid newsletter. The model works. There are other things that you can do to build on a membership, but then my advice is always to really think about that and do your research in terms of the long-term plans around it, but also the price point, because you have to give Substack 10%. If you encounter anything with taxes and things like that, which I won't go into in this episode, but it can be really problematic because you're going to have to absorb the taxes because Substack don't charge the taxes in the UK anyway. So there's loads of things to think about, but I'm here for you. I am your biggest cheerleader on Substack. I'm so excited that you are listening and that you are tuning in. I would love any likes and shares. I really deeply appreciate your support and your comments, and I will see you on the next episode. I don't know when I'll do another solo episode. Like I said, I don't do them very often now. I just have guests, but it's beautiful to be here. And if you have got questions, do come on over to the membership or drop me a little DM on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you.